Welcome. My name is Kelly Riordan. I'm a classical musician turned creative entrepreneur, and this is the best platform for musicians that are looking to shape their career by thinking outside the box. Today we have Jasmine Sandler with us, who is a multi-passionate entrepreneur. So many incredible things that you have going on in the industry right now, Jasmine. So thank you for being here with us. I'm so excited for today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I want to start first with your first business, because I think that's where our journey makes the most sense today. So when did you start your first business, independent from all of your other work that you were doing previously?
Yeah, that's a great question because people always say, oh, have you been an entrepreneur your whole life? And I actually think in my head, I've always been an entrepreneur, but that's not the case. So my first business actually came from stemming off of a corporate position. Okay. So I actually started my corporate career at IBM, where I was the head of marketing and sales globally for a division that is pre-internet. It's called, I don't know how much you know about VPNs, but virtual private networks. So that's pre-internet. And it was pre-internet in terms of the popularity of the internet and social media, but the internet was there. And we were just starting to like really embrace the internet as a commercial tool. So during that time at IBM, I had an idea based on my passion. So my passions have always been around music and sports. So I had an idea for a social network that would bring those two things together in a way that serves the action sport community. I don't know how much you know about extreme sports or action sports. The most obvious one would be skateboarding. So I started a business. I left IBM and took my money and started a social network called Extreme Connections, which was an online community that brought together 22 different action sports. I worked with ESPN, action sports. I work with Extreme TV out of London. And I built an online community that gave opportunities for athletes to get sponsored. And as well, I worked with Sony Music and brought in music to do promotions. So that was like, honestly, such a great experience as an entrepreneur because it was an online business, but most of my work, because I'm like a natural salesperson, promotion marketing person, was going out and building relationships with skate parks, athletes, bands. It was really fun. So that was my first business, and it was a huge lesson that got me here today 100%, because all of the learnings and everything I did after that, then I became like this, I don't know, sought out expert because I had all this knowledge that people never did that. And so then I started consulting. But I don't want to go too far forward. But anyway, so that was my first business. And it was tough. It was tough. It was tough, but it was extremely rewarding. Like I catapulted my knowledge in a few years, you know.
Well, and at the time that you were at IBM, I believe you were also an artist yourself, right? So you were performing on the side. Music truly was your other passion. How are you finding balance in that? Because obviously you weren't totally in the industry yet, but then on nights, weekends, I'm sure you're playing a lot and trying to balance the corporate life and the musician life, which is exhausting, I'm sure.
Yeah, so for me, I always say to people, like even now I do a few things. And I always say for myself, and I try to help others to live their lives like this. I'm not a coach, I'm not any life coach, but is that you want to think about what it is you really love and try to leverage that across everything you're doing. And it's not really a cliche. If you can do it and you're smart and you make the right decisions and you have enough experience, you can do it. So for me, music, I always look to tie it into everything that I'm doing. So I'm a keynote speaker. That's how we met at the NAMM conference on music, but I'm a speaker, right? I'm a paid speaker. And I chose, okay, I do speaking in corporate, which I do. I do trainings in corporate on executive branding and social selling. How can I do that in the music industry? So I went to the Musicians Institute. I said, I want to teach a class here. I taught a class at Berkeley. Then it gave me the credibility to be able to go to NAMM and say, I want to speak there. You see what I mean? So like my job is education in social media, digital marketing, all of that, right? I get paid to do that. And I just said, well, I really want to work in the music industry. So I'm going to figure out a business model that works, that supports the demands, but also supports my passion. And that's exactly, I do that every single day On my calendar, I have my work, music, work, music. It's, otherwise you can't, you lose the music, I guess.
Right. Right. Well, and it's something that I'm sure a lot of our listeners are dealing with right now too. If you are finishing school, or if you're just finishing, you're maybe not working in the industry right now, and you want to come back to the industry. It's hard. It's hard to find your way back into it. It's hard to incorporate those passions into your work when it feels like work is what you do to pay the bills, and music is what you do on the
Yeah,
side for fun.
exactly.
Right.
Yes, it
You have to
is.
find
And
that
I have
balance.
two bands, so they all have the same challenges. And
Yeah.
I find this, I'm going to tell you a stat that just I believe in, that I think is common, not just across music, but across everything. Um, because I've had 20 guitarists in my one band.
Hmm.
I'm bringing that up because it's the musicians, the artists, the business people that focus on themselves becoming a professional, being committed, loyal, dedicated, staying away from bad things in life, if you know what I mean. Those are the ones that rise to the top.
Hmm.
So, that's always my advice for people. If you really want to make it in whatever, you got to think of yourself as a professional, and then you'll make the right decisions. It's just
Yeah.
an interesting thing I see almost every day in my work.
Well, and gigging musicians by the government standards, you're filing a Schedule C, you are a business. You are an independent contractor.
You
So,
are a business, yes.
yeah, if the government's going to treat you that way, it absolutely makes sense to be treating yourself that way. Now, okay, so you have the social network, which is so cool. So you're doing this for musicians and for athletes and for all these different brands. How did you morph that now into your current businesses? And obviously tell us a little bit about that too, so everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, sure. So when I had that business, I made the mistake. Again, I always learn from mistakes, and so does everybody. I had the mistake of bringing on a business partner,
Hmm.
and he basically bankrupt my business.
Oh,
And it's
goodness.
not that he was a guy, it was just that he was a business partner that was in it for
Yeah.
the wrong reasons. And
Mm.
he wasn't from the music industry, he was from an outside industry. And he really didn't have any knowledge of the industry itself. And I brought him on because he kind of proposed his work as an expert in monetizing online businesses.
Okay.
So, he was like the financial, basically my CFO.
Okay.
And so as a CFO, I handed over the keys to my money and everything, I was very naive. I mean, I started my first business really young,
Hmm.
like super young. So, so I was, naive. So unfortunately that business monetarily didn't profit as it should have. It's okay. But I walked away. I wasn't, without money, and I walked away with tons of knowledge. So what happened was after that business, I had so much knowledge. I built a 300,000 subscriber network online.
Wow.
I built relationships with Sony Music. It was like a major effort that I did. So I was able to take my knowledge and my experience and go out and talk to other businesses, primarily advertising marketing agencies, to say, hey, I did all this work. What do you guys have for me? So I ended
Hmm.
up consulting for other marketing agencies for a number of years. And it got to the point where, because of my expertise and because I'm a natural speaker and I love the stage so much, they would appoint me to be their speaker at events and conferences, that's what I really, that's my love. So I would go do that all the time. And at one point I was speaking on behalf of an agency at a conference, I think in Phoenix or something. And I had all of these audience members come up to me and ask, and the agency I was working for, our clients were Fortune 1000 companies, big companies. So, but the people that came up to me at that point and asked me questions, I knew that they wanted to work with an agency, but I knew that these were small businesses and individual entrepreneurs that couldn't work with a big agency. So literally this light bulb went off like this, because I'm an entrepreneur, and said, go do this on your own.
Hmm.
So I did. And I started an agency with nothing, and I've grown it ever since.
Wow.
And so here I am today. I have my agency. I have within the agency an entire division dedicated to artists because of my passion to make sure that they make money. It's very simple. And then I also have another business called Warrior Women in Business, which is all about supporting female entrepreneurs. So that's what I do, But yeah, it all ties in together.
Absolutely. And being able to bring this corporate background that you had and all this early knowledge of internet marketing and selling online, which is something that even today people struggle with. It's everywhere. We're constantly using the internet, but it's still mysterious, I think, for most people. So having a really clear path and having that early knowledge and being kind of on the cutting edge all the way through obviously puts you in a really, really strong position to help with that. And I'm assuming that's what most of your speaking was on, early as you were going to these conferences and presentations, was how to brand online as online developed. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
yep, yep. So, I mean, I've been in personal branding literally forever. And actually, the place where my personal branding work really started to develop was in the recession, because I had
Mm.
just basically started my business. It always happens to me. Being a business owner is hard. I tell that to every person. I'm like, it is not glamorous at all. So I started this business, and in the first year, I was like kicking butt. Like I was like, the video game industry board was my client. It was awesome. I mean,
Mm.
that's a big deal. And then I was working also in the fashion industry, so I had big clients. So what happens? The world crumbles within like a year, and there's a major recession. So what happened was a lot of major companies like JP Morgan, Bear Stearns, a lot of banks that aren't even here today, what happened was they downsized. So you had all these executives scrambling to find their next careers, and what they did is they started their own like small businesses.
Sure.
So that's how I started doing personal branding, was for those guys. Like I
Mm.
started with bank clients and doing that personal branding work because they needed it. And now personal branding is like, it's an everyday thing. But I'm always at the beginning of everything. I don't know why, but I am. And so I
So I
saw it,
think
and
that
now I do it. And I was interviewed on the segment on CBS like a few years back. I loved it because the interviewer was awesome. And it was on selling your selfies. And I'm like, she's interviewing me. And in my head, I'm just thinking about, wow, like, look how far this has come.
mm.
It's crazy to me when you see things develop from first to last. It's just very interesting. I just think it's interesting. I'll just put it there.
Well, and look, you've got this entrepreneurial mind and you're on the cutting edge because you're observant all the time. And I think it's something that a lot of people pull themselves back from. And I'm sure you see this in your clients all the time too, that they have an idea or they have an area of expertise, but there's that self doubt of, I don't know if anyone would want this, or I don't know if I'm good enough, smart enough, fast enough, all of those concerns that we all have, the imposter
Yeah,
syndrome.
and you know what that affects that's what I teach on, is their value. So when you doubt yourself, you're not going to charge the value. It's about charging the value, but most people can't figure out their value. They
Mm.
can't figure it out. And that's the
Okay,
big
so
I see that's probably the biggest issue.
So when we're talking to an artist, for example, who really can struggle to see their value, as I'm sure you see on a daily basis, what are some of those core tenets or core values that they should be looking at, or ways to position themselves in the marketplace and make themselves stand out?
Well, the way that I start working with artists, because I work with them, not many one-on-one, they have to be, believe me, very serious, as a heart attack, because I don't want to. But the ones that, if I'm educating them in a group setting, or if they're the serious one-on-one, I always start with the personal brand discovery. It's really deep,
Mm.
really deep. And one of the things that I do in there, to answer your question, which is actionable right on the podcast here, is to have them make an assets assessment. Assets,
Mm.
right? So I'm very old school. I don't care because I'm old school and stuff I do works. So
Yeah.
so I have them start with a spreadsheet. Like in my course, it's always spreadsheet, so they can. I want them to see it, make
Mm.
columns. Look at it like from a data perspective. Like make it scientific as opposed to creative, because it doesn't work.
Yep.
So line item out what the assets are and attribute a value. And I give them a scale system, you know what I mean? But so an example would be, there's a woman that I've been talking to that I think would make a great client for me, because I really believe in her. She's an artist and she's powerful, but she doesn't believe it yet. So I'm not
Mm.
pushing her. No, I'm not pushing her. I'm just like waiting. I'm waiting for her. It's okay, you know? And I see, when I met with her, I was listening for her assets. She was like, oh, well, I've done this show and I brought together all these artists in my community. And, she said, oh, and, I had something written about me on a blog because I did this differently. And because I'm a singer, right? So she said, well, and I study at Juilliard. So she said to me, well, I have a background in operatic singing. And I was like, check mark. To me, I'm like, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark, right? So then I asked her, well, what are you selling your tickets for? Were you selling this? She had no idea. She's all over the place. And that's the issue, right? Until she's clear, she's not going to be able to pull the trigger on being a business person. You know what I mean? So I think that for the musicians, watching or listening to the podcast, one thing that they should definitely do is start to think about what their assets are. Meaning, for those of you that are like young and don't understand what assets are, is what's a value that you have done, or it could be something intangible like an attribute. So you might want to ask other people that know you just some simple questions like, what is it about me that you think is different? And what do you like about me on, what is it on stage that I do? Or because I always ask with my music, like, what is it about this song that appeals to you, if you're a songwriter? So you understanding what your assets are first is the only, and that's literally just the basics of building blocks. But that's the first place to start for them.
I'm sure it's a challenge for a lot of the artists that you're working with too, to start brainstorming these ideas and thinking of things as an asset, not just, their background, their biography, their pedigree, like where they studied with, or where they studied and who they studied with. That's usually where most musician or artists' minds go. But you're right, like the network that you have, the connections that you have, your ability to bring people together, the collaboration skills that you have, these are all important assets to include on that list. So you have these assets, and then from there, are you looking at trying to monetize all of them, or are we trying to really hone in and focus?
No. So like I said, the assets can be tangible or intangible. Mm-hmm. The point that what I do for a living, specifically with artists, is help them to create a business out of their music, out of their personal brand, right? So that's the net of the whole thing. So with the assets, it's really about what can they bring to the table. And it's not easy. Like, listen, when you go into because I've done product development in my life, right? When you do product development for a company, it's not like, oh, I'm going to think about this, put a price to it and put it to market. That's not how business works. You have to think about what the assets are. You got to see how you can productize, what products make sense. And you have to understand what the demand is for those products. And definitely in the music world, competition, right? I mean, that's huge. So for me, for example, I will never, ever have my music in the pop category, ever. I'm not interested. It's not authentic. It makes zero sense. Good. Let the pop artists do what they want, right? I know who's my competitor. I know, So you want those assets will help you kind of understand what is it in those assets that I can productize, right? So I don't know, without doing the work, I can't really show you, but
all good.
But that's really the first place. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of musicians, and we see this in our work every day, they tend to be spread, right? They're doing a little bit of everything. They're saying yes to a lot of gigs and opportunities. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes to trying to monetize and trying to sell a package and have a singular personal brand, sometimes they get spread too thin. So it's good to hear that clarity is important. List it all, include everything, and then find those commonalities and find the areas that you're most passionate about, and then go there and really hone in on the things that you're most excited about.
Yeah, it's a starting point.
Awesome. And now in the branding, obviously you work with a lot of artists, but you also work with a lot of non-artists. What are some things that you think make the musicians that you work with or the artists that are your clients unique? Or maybe what are some unique challenges that they typically have in this process?
What makes them unique versus, let's just take, because I have three types of clients.
Okay.
I have executives. That's number one. I'd say it's number one because they don't have problems paying, and because I love them. They're super smart. We just move forward fast. I get results. They have the money. It's easy. Mm-hmm. I love working with executives. So I have the executives. It's one-on-one work. Okay. Then I have entrepreneurs, which are generally small business owners owning a company. It's usually like $1 million in revenue up to maybe 20, 30 million, right? Which may sound big, but it's not. And it's just not. And because usually they're looking to grow globally. They're looking to have like hundreds of thousands of customers. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the entrepreneurs are, usually those are longer term engagements, right? And I really have to hand hold them. However, they already have some business acumen and they generally already have products and services if they're selling. For me, I always say I just like, I tweak, I optimize. That's what I do for them. I optimize all their marketing and branding programs. I'm like a drill sergeant with their people. Usually I'm overseeing their people and just making sure that things are moving forward in the right way. Okay. The artist, which would be the third area, right? So with the artists, what's unique about them is what I like about working with artists the most is that they understand and allow me to do leverage some of my more creative
Mm.
ideas. You know what I mean? And I enjoy that. Also, what I really enjoy with them is there's so much room that I can grow them.
Yeah.
The executives, I only have to grow them like this. The entrepreneurs, maybe like this. The artist is like this. So it's like, wow, this is a huge opportunity for me personally. I really enjoy it because then I can take them from like 0 to 100, which is one of the talks that I do, keynote speech, 0 to 100 in social branding. So I would say that because I don't know, I like cars. So, anyways, it's and it makes sense like 0 to 100.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so for that's exciting to me, right? Like sitting down with them, for example. So I'll show you a couple just because I have this next to me. So we have I have a whole business for artists that does merchandising A to Z. They don't even need to carry merch at their shows. We do the whole fulfillment. Like it's awesome. We do all the design, blah blah blah. You know, what I enjoy about that is a lot of them don't know how to monetize their merchandise. So like we design, just to show you some of the things that we do. We do this stuff, right? What I love about it is because I wanted to show, not just because I love the design, but also because it's a hard good. That's why I'm holding it in my
Mm.
hand. It's a hard good. If I get anything across to artists, it's like, think about yourself as a product, right? So it's a hard good. So what I enjoy doing with them is taking them from this like ethereal idea, and taking it to like a hard good. That's what I really enjoy, but it's a challenge,
Mhm.
right? It's a challenge in a number of ways. So number one, obviously the number one challenge I have with artists is money. Yeah, obvious, right? It's an obvious one. They always say, I want to hire you. I want to hire you. And I never hear back from them. I'm like, whatever. I'm not chasing anyone down in my lifetime. So if they want to, they all good. If they don't, and then, and then the other challenge with them, as I was saying I had a call with another music tech company yesterday. That's a startup. They're interested in working with me. And I said to them, the reason that you guys are having a hard time is I said, because musicians are being bombarded with offers all the time.
Yeah.
And I even had an artist out of Hollywood send me an email. She doesn't even know me from a hole in the wall. And she said, I like what you're doing, but I need you to tell me it's not a scam. And I'm like, I'm not a scam. I don't even, but I understand. And I said to her, I was like, you know what? I understand where you're coming from. So I'm not holding it against you. And I said, here are my case studies. Here are the costs. If you want to come back to us, it's fine. If you don't, it's okay. You know what I mean? So that's another challenge with artists that they're like getting bombarded. So that's why I'm an educator. I want to show them that it's not a scam. The industry is not bad. It's a good industry. I love it. There's good people in it that are supportive. There's good things out there. Embrace it. So that goes into closed-mindedness, which a lot of artists have, and that's a big problem. I can't work with a closed-minded musician. It doesn't work.
Right.
They have to be open-minded, and they have to think like a business person. So those are like the money and the way of and the mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, are keys to their success, but there also can be their detriment. Do you know what I mean? So I would say those are their, like if I was just talking about general business challenges, those would be the 3.
Well, and a lot of artists have significant confidence in their abilities. They have been studying for years, practicing for years. So they probably come to you and again, they feel so confident in what they can offer or their skills and how it's presented and their success.
Yeah.
But then that confidence can get in the way. And I've seen this happen too, that, when musicians come to us and looking at the business knowledge around starting a private studio, even, we tend to run into this tiny bit of conflict where you want growth, but growth also means feedback. Growth means relearning things that you think you might know already.
Yeah.
And it's not because you don't know information. It's not because you're not a proficient artist. It's just the refinements, like you were saying, just making those tiny adjustments and optimizing everything. And it isn't always a comfortable process, I'm sure, for everyone that you're working with.
No, but the thing is, I always say with business, I've been saying this forever, like the best business person is the best listener. So
Mm,
I find that so it's just so important. A lot of people, they just want to interject all the time without, nobody's perfect. So, you know, learning. That's why the executives hire me. They know, that's why I love working with them because they're mature. They, you know what, this isn't something I don't know. When you're a business person, you want to, do less and less and less work.
right.
That's a great business person. Like so if you're an inventor, I want to focus on my invention. You know, if you're a musician, I want to focus on my music. That's, you should always try to go back to your core. So you might want to learn about all these other things, especially if you don't have the money, right? You're going to need to DIY it. But, at some point you got to be able to listen to people that are, I don't know if it's experts, but experienced people that have
Mhm.
been there, done that, they've proven it type of thing. It's very, very important. And yeah, so I think that's so. I mean, like I always, it's funny with musicians because I'm a musician. It's easy for me to battle with them. So if they say, "Well, I don't have money for marketing," I'll say, "Okay, well, tell me how much money you spent on your guitars, on rehearsal time, on because I already know. They don't even. I already know because I spend it. So that's how I get them to actually start thinking like business people. Like, oh
Mhm.
wow, I spent like 5 grand last year. I spent 10 grand last year, and they don't think about it. They want to show up. Like I have guitars. I just bought a $1,300 guitar. I'm like, really? Okay, so that's an investment. So, but if you just start to get them to realize, then on a personal level, they start to get it instead of I don't tell them. I just get them to think.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's a much better way of helping them understand things. I always think the best teacher does that in general.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know.
And you've taken a lot of big leaps in your career. So obviously, you've had to be that open minded person, be that coachable person, and learn a lot of new things and experiment. What has, and I'm sure it's not just one thing, but where does that confidence come from in taking a leap of faith and trying something new and trusting someone and learning new information? How do you keep finding that motivation, that open mindedness?
Well, for me, I don't know if it's a curse or a blessing, but it's true. I feel like I was born to be an entrepreneur, and because every time I go to take a job in the many years, like during recession times, you have to. I mean, everybody has to be real here. Um, I'll always get a client.
Hmm.
It's like God keeps. I really believe in God. Like hands, it just happens. So I get to the point where I'm like, you know what? This is what I have to do. This is what I have to be open minded. I have to be open to what, and I'm not going to be frou and say the universe, but I have to be open to kind of what's happening
Mhm.
around me. But I also have to really analyze what's going around me. So I'm always analyzing, always, and I always am listening to people that are better than me. Always better in terms of what I think is better in terms, not in term whatever, in terms of their success in where I want to go. So if I see that they're not, for example, all over the place and they're only focused on one service area, I will think, what's the service area I need to focus on? If I'm charging 5K a month for a client and they're charging 15K, I'm like, all right, what do I need to do? And I quickly fix things. So I'm always looking to improve myself every day and what I do for a living. So I couldn't do that if I didn't know what else was out there and I didn't learn. It's just so important. You have to be educated. And people always say I have to read books and all this. I think that's very true. I think that you have to be educated and you got to take time. It doesn't mean you need to sit down and read a book at all. I get actually most of my knowledge is from talking to people. That's my
Mhm.
style. My style is that's why I actually have 2 podcasts. One of the reasons is like I want to talk to smart people. I'm like, man, these people are so smart. So I'm always looking to talk to people that are smarter than me in other areas. That's how I learn. And they might have read 50 books and then I don't even need to read them. So it's just how I go, because I'm like matrix way of thinking. I'm like, just dump it in, let me move forward.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
something that constant desire to learn, not only does it mean that your business is improving, but also there's personal development there. And when you are an entrepreneur, your personal development and your business development go hand in hand. You have to be constantly learning and improving yourself so that the business can improve and grow as well. So, what are some of those mentors, especially as we're talking about social selling and social media and personal branding? Who are some of those mentors for you right now that you are looking at, or maybe people that you find on, I know there's like a lot of gurus and things on TikTok and
Yeah,
Instagram.
I know.
Who do
I'm
you find
it's
yourself drawn to?
yeah, so I'm not drawn to the traditional gurus that you might think about. I'm not. I've actually been on panels with some of them, believe it or not, as a speaker. I don't want to say anything on this podcast, but some of the
You're
people
fine.
I don't jive with. In terms of like, I just don't even want to say it. So, because I don't like saying anything like that. But I have in my network. So let me just talk about my network first, because this is where I find some of my own mentors and gurus right now at this very moment. So I am on the board of several organizations, right? One of the organizations that I'm on the board of is the Global Chamber. So it's international. It is literally global. So we have chapters around the world. And so I'm on the board of the New York chapter and the LA chapter, because that's where I do business. I'm bi-coastal. I don't know if I'm holding New York and LA over here correctly, but anyway, so in that chamber, there are people in the chamber that do import export globally, and they run multi-million dollar, billion dollar manufacturing companies. Um, so I am creating programs with them right now,
Hmm.
and these people are my mentor. They have done so much more than I've done. Like I'm like this compared to what these people have done. And they're not people you would know, and they're not shouting their names out there. These people that have written, sorry about that, written New York Times bestsellers, but they're in specific import export, like the China explosion. Is the guy that wrote that, Savio Chen, is one of my mentors. He's super successful. You wouldn't have heard of him. He's not some, and I love Tony Robbins. He's like, I love Tony Robbins. If we're going to throw out names on this podcast, I love Tony Robbins. Not why you think I like him. I like him from a business perspective. I love how he has productized his business and made it scalable. I've been to his seminars, and they're great, but that's not why I like him. I like him because of what he's done as a business owner. So I never really care so much about what people say in business. The people I tend to listen to when I throw on a podcast are actually psychologists
Hmm.
and philosophers. That's if you are going to like look and see what I listen to, that's what I listen to, because I'm all about self-improvement from the inside out. So but they do directly affect my business. They definitely directly affect my business. So Mel Robbins, I love her. She's great. We're in totally different businesses, but I love her because she's so vulnerable and she really does help people. And that has, people may like think that's not business. Yes, it is. Business is psychology. Business is all about how you feel about yourself. Business is about being human. So those are the people I tend to listen to. The people I tend to go to for mentoring are people that are in my networks, because I have been such a risk taker and hard worker to find these people that are like multi-billion dollar people that you may have not even heard of, but I have, because I've done the work. That's who I seek out, because they'll tell me, hey, you're doing this wrong, and I'm like, good, tell me, like,
Yeah.
what am I doing
I want
wrong?
to know where my faults are.
Please
Absolutely. And
tell
how do you
me.
grow? Yeah, absolutely.
So you always, if you want to be a business owner, you have to seek those people out, and not the people that you're going to listen to and they're never going to respond to you. Those are not the people that I consider mentors. They're not mentors.
Mhm.
They're nice to listen to. You get some information, and that's nice. But to me, it's not a mentor. A mentor is someone that actually helps you and works with you, even if it's like once every 3 months and just gives you some advice. It's fine.
And to find these people too, as you said, you have to be a risk taker. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. And you probably have to hear no a lot. And that's something I
Oh
think
my
a lot of
God.
us
Yes.
struggle with too, right?
You have no idea how many times I've heard no in my life.
But this is practice. And I think, as we're talking to musicians about things like selling and trying to brand themselves and trying to make these connections and network, you have to get comfortable hearing no and still being able to adjust and pivot and refocus yourself and
Yeah,
stay
you
true to
have
that.
to. You know what's funny is, so one thing I want to bring up, if you don't mind,
Mhm.
is I'm completely against pay to play as a
Mm,
musician. I hate it. It's stupid, and nobody should do it. There you go, is my opinion. But anyway, so we played a show. My band played a show because we're a intellectual punk hard rock band, and I love my band. But anyway, so we played a show with a pretty big name person, and there were like five other bands. I mean, big name for me, but anyway, so there were five other bands, and they all paid.
mm,
So that when the guy came to me, the producer of the show, and said, "Hey, we'd love to have your band. It's the right fit of the right music," which it was. This is the cost. I said, "Well, I'm happy to play. I'm not paying you a penny." I said, "Because I'm going to market your show. I spent X amount of dollars in rehearsals. All of my bandmates are professionals. I need to pay them.
mm.
That's what I do. I'm not paying." And we didn't pay. And we had, to me, that was the best show I've ever had with the band. Because I felt like on stage, I was like, felt awesome. Because I was like, I felt like I was doing something bigger than just playing, like doing something,
Mm.
making a stand, you know. And unfortunately, because of COVID, and it hurt my speaking business and it's hurt everybody. But the venues got hurt. It's a whole. I mean, I know everything that's going on in the industry right now. But musicians, they need to stand up for themselves.
Yeah.
But not just stand up for themselves. They need to creatively think about, okay, if they're not going to pay, then what are they going to do to help the industry and not be selfish about it too, you know?
Right.
So, like, you want to be in this industry for anybody. What are you doing to actually help the industry as well? It's something for them to think about, like, oh, I might bring people or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So that's just something for them to think about.
Well, and selling, I'm talking about selling online, having a social media following and having that reach or having an email list, those are also assets that are something that you
Oh,
can
huge
monetize.
assets. I mean, that's what I was talking about at NAM. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something that you can bring to the table in these kind of contract negotiations and when we're talking about how we can help another venue, another band, and create these collaborations.
Yeah.
So, right now, as far as online selling and branding go, what platforms are the artists that you're working with? What are they leaning on the most? Are they posting a lot on TikTok? What does this look like right now?
So the artists that we tend to work with are, I just have to say it, serious artists. I'm talking about like the actual, they hire
Yeah.
the agency. So what's interesting to me is they all tend to be in a certain kind of, well, they all have to have a real discography. So generally they'll have at least like a few, one, I don't know, at least 2 to 3 albums,
Okay.
maybe 2 albums. And they have to have been in the game for a while and they already have to have fans. So that knocks out actually a lot of bands and
Mhm.
artists, you know. So anyway, so if you look at my site, you look at the case studies, they all of them, whether a singer, songwriter, a band, it doesn't, they all have that because that means that they have the experience and the maturity level to say, I want this as a business. So that's number one. So I only bring that up to answer your question because actually for them, most of their success in terms of a channel, believe it or not, has been on Facebook. They all
Mm,
tend to have a fan following initially on Facebook. And so it's nice because it's easier to kind of build that out and tie that into Instagram to run their campaigns, grow their groups, merch because you can do the shopping. So it's nice to start on one channel, believe it or not, because then you're not all over the place
right.
and you're not trying to compete with videos on, you know. But the other thing for them, I'm just talking about my clients because you asked a question, is definitely YouTube for them.
Mm,
So I encourage them, because again, it's all about monetization. I encourage them to monetize every time they're playing, right? So if they're doing a live stream or because we also do like live video production at the shows for them, you know? So we'll stream it and I'll say, you guys have better be doing this on YouTube. You better be doing a tip jar. You better be making some money from this because they usually already have fans.
okay.
So it's not hard for them. And usually they come to us because they not only want to monetize, but they usually want to get out of their local area. Like that's usually their pain point, that they feel like they maximize this local town or city and they want to go. So for for those type of musicians, those are the channels. And it's not so much with, because people always ask me what channel should be on. I'm like, listen, the key is no, because it drives me crazy. I'm like, and even with business owners and executives, I'm like, let's focus, let's focus, let's focus, focus. Because if you're trying to do everything and then you don't, and especially if you hire my company and you ask us to do everything and then you're not seeing results because there's too much going on and it's not effective, then it's going to look bad and you're going to get discouraged. So it's better that you focus on what's working. So for my clients, it's usually Facebook and YouTube just because of who they are, But obviously for younger artists, obviously they're going to be more on TikTok. I mean, that's so obvious. But again, like, is it working for them? And what do they want to do? Because the younger artists can become influencers. They can get paid. They can get,
Sure.
I mean, good, go. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's the thing for them. So it's very individualized, but the key answer there is focus, because otherwise you're just going to be posting for the sake of posting. Like a lot of times, I had somebody reach out to me yesterday who's interested in being in my Warrior Women coaching program, which is another thing that I run. And she said to me, "Oh, I noticed you're posting more on social. That means you're working more." And I'm like, no. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. That's why I told her, I'm like, no. When you don't see me all over the place, because I don't even want to be, all I want to do every day is focus on my clients and help them, So if I'm doing that, I don't have room to be doing unnecessary things. When you're a business owner, you want to focus on what's working. So if TikTok is working for you, good, optimize it, focus there. But if you're a band that has a big following on Facebook and you have tons of shows coming up, you're super busy, you're coming out with a new single, which are my clients, do you want to spend all your time trying to figure out how to create unique content for TikTok? You're not, because then you're going to be losing money. So yeah, that's my advice based on my experience.
So would you say it's focus on the areas that you are the most comfortable? So if you're most comfortable on Facebook as a platform, stay there, as opposed to
I wouldn't
trying to
say
guess
comfortable.
where your people are?
Yes, I wouldn't say comfortable. I would say what's working.
Okay.
So, you got to look at the platforms and see who uses the platforms and how they use it. That's number one, And then we always run test campaigns, right? Like test ads, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, AdWords. We always run test ads. So I always encourage, if you're going to DIY it, right, then run some test campaigns, around something like a song release or merch or something tangible, or a show, obviously. That's important.
That makes complete sense. Now, with everything that you are balancing on kind of on a personal note in running all of your businesses, how do you find this balance for yourself? Because we're talking about all the different areas that you are focusing. How do you stay focused in your work, and how do you stay motivated and not
Well,
feeling
right now I'm in
burnt
the
out?
process of hiring more, which makes me happy. I want to hire. I want to hire. 100%, because I can't scale a global business without having the right people. It's not possible. You know why? Because I don't want to have a day where I'm not doing music. That's what drives me. I'm like, nope, I gotta do music. Nope, I gotta do music, right? Because music is therapy. So, yeah, it really is. And so, finding the balance is 100% about having, for me, it's about having the right support. And it's like, that's it. For me, that's always been my challenge as a business owner, being truthful with you here, very candid. It's always been the challenge as a business owner. Number one, because like most businesses, I bootstrapped it. I never had any financial support. Zero. From no one. Ever. So that's why. So when you don't have support, you have to be very creative, and you have to focus.
Yeah.
Because you can go do all these things, but if it's not making you money, you've got to stop, because you don't have the time. You'll learn that as you start to grow up. So for balance, for me, number one is my calendar. I've learned the hard way. So when I have a client, I tell them, these are the hours that I'm available. This is when I am not available. That's number one. And if I feel like I don't want to give them more hours, I won't. Even if it, if I need to focus on something else, I'll say, we'll do this. So when I take on business, I look at it like, okay, how much time do I have? Does my team have? What are my resources? How much time can I spend in a day? Do I want to spend in a day? Because I have sports, music, the things that I love, and I'm not going to sacrifice them. I'm just not, no way, because I'll be unhappy. You know what I mean? And then I will resent the work, which you don't want to do. So, so I think having the calendar, having boundaries, understanding your time, having the right support, is critical, but you can't do any of that, until you really, it goes back to value, understand the value. Because if I'm not charging enough, guess what? I can't hire people. So it's like it all goes together. That's what goes back to your great question about mentors. If the mentors are telling me, hey, like my mentors, they travel all around the world. They have time to play tennis. One of my mentors told me the other day, I'm going to tennis. It was like Monday at 10 in the morning. This guy's like a billionaire, right? No, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
It's because he knows how to run a business.
Right. And the delegation is such a large part of that.
It's
not
so, and I'm not the best manager. I don't really enjoy being a manager. It's hard work.
Yeah.
I don't mind managing my clients, but managing staff is like a whole nother ball of wax. So, so I lead by example. I try to inspire. That's all I can do. I try to get money for them. I mean, I just do what the best that I can do. And then I try to find other help. There's people that, when you're a business owner, you got to find people that are better than you in every single area. And then you become successful. That's like, and it's not easy. It's a balancing act to balance your schedule.
So outside of all this work and managing your staff and managing your clients and supporting everyone, obviously you have music as your passion, and that's where you're spending a lot of your time, and that's what you're trying to make time for right now in your calendar, it sounds like, too. What are the things outside of your own performance and your own gigs are you trying to do more of right now? Like, on a personal note, what hobbies do you have? What brings you joy outside of your work right now? Or what do you do for your self-care in the moments that you're not solely focused on your entrepreneurship and your work?
That I'm not doing business, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, I had my recital 2 weeks ago at Juilliard. I'm taking the Juilliard extension program, and it's just the best. And so now I'm going into my second semester. I love being a student. It's just awesome. I can't tell you how great it is. So for me, that brings me like the most joy is my Juilliard program, because as a singer, my goal as a singer is to be the greatest singer I can be. That's it. And it's just so refreshing to be able to improve so quickly, because now I'm finally at the point where I'm taking advanced vocal training. So I'm finally at the point where I can, I still have a long way to go. I still have a long way to go, but it's good. And so that brings me joy. Definitely working with my bands. My boyfriend, obviously, he takes up a lot of time. He's an artist, but he's a illustrator. So we actually work on projects together. So he's very, very talented. So I know the artist mindset pretty much inside and out. And I love traveling. I want to do more of that. We met at NAMM. I live in New York, and my goal for the business and my personal life has been to be bi-coastal for a very long time. I'm finally making that happen. Finally, after many years. So I really love California. Like, it's my favorite place in the world. So when I go out there, I'm sunshine. I'm so happy. So for me, like, doing music out there is like, for me, that's like the be all end all of life. So that's what I really, really enjoy. And then, personal self-development is really important to me. Exercise is hugely important to me. These are things that most people like I had a friend say to me the other day, a musician, she said, "Oh my God, you work out?" I'm like, "Oh my, are you kidding me?" Every single day of my life. And it brings me joy, though. She said, "Oh, I don't like that." But to me, I love it. I love anything with exercise. I enjoy it, So those are the things that I enjoy doing, because it's all about, to me, it's like, just having an opportunity to improve yourself is very cool. It's just cool stuff.
That's awesome. And I think that's why a lot of our listeners, obviously on the podcast, that's why they're here and they're listening to your story today, is that they want to be improving themselves. And I know that you have a couple offers for them too, which is so generous of you to have a few ideas in mind for them. Can you tell us a little bit more about how someone can work with you if they're interested in this right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for introducing that. So I have two offers today. One is for those of you that are looking to DIY. Like, you're probably doing a lot of social media, and you probably love social media because you haven't been doing it yet a million years to not want to do it. So that's what I'm going to
It's
say
fresh and
here.
new.
Yeah, I'm the person that wants to be outside. But yeah, so if you're DIYing things and you just need help, so maybe you need resources, maybe you need the education, and you just haven't built your brand yet, you haven't monetized things yet. So I created a course. I was telling Kelly pre-show, it's actually hard on purpose. Because if you say, hey, you know what? Yep, I want to DIY it, just give me the course. It's like no other course out there, I think. I don't know. So what I did is I took it. So I teach at the Musicians Institute. So I took that course, which is artist branding for students, and I combined it with business development, monetization, and protecting your brand. So it's like everything that you need, not just me, but also I link to, with my company, I partner with a lot of music industry companies and big companies. And I went to all of them. I'm serious. And I was like, you got to give an artist a discount. You got to give them a deal. Some of them said yes. Some of them asked me to pay them to do it. I'm like, see you later. But the ones that say there's a lot of good people in the music industry. They said, you know what? Yes, I'm happy to help musicians. Tell me what I have to do. I said, you don't have to do anything. So there's a part of the course that just links to all of those, and contact them and just mention JSM for Artists. I did that with a lot of rehearsal studios, because I know as a musician, we pay a lot of money for rehearsal time.
Yeah.
So you can get my discount at some of these studios, which is pretty cool. But anyway, so this course is like next to nothing. It's on Udemy, and it's Artist Branding for Business is the title of the course. The company is JSM for Artists, and I'm giving 50% off. Artist Branding 50 is the code. So that's number one. So that's like, you just want to check it out. I think after 50% off, it's like $10, whatever. Starbucks, it's like the cost of a cup of coffee. I mean, I'm a coffee snob, so I don't do cheap coffee. But anyway, so that's that. So that's one. Number two is more for artists and bands that really are at the point where you're spending more time trying to market your brand than doing your music, or it's getting in the way, or like stressed out, or you've hired people, it hasn't worked out. You just are ready, or you want to make money, which to me is the most important. So you want to make money from your brand, and you just don't know how to do it yet, or you're wasting a lot of money in merch. Like, all of those reasons, you may want to consider working with my company. I also offer like super inexpensive coaching, only for artists, not for my other people. So anyway, so for that program, I'm doing 15% off for all of our reduced package rates for the ones that are really serious. JasmineSandler.com is my website. You just go to the artist page. Everything is there. So it's pretty simple. So anyways, there's like super easy ways to work with us. Like, I've made it I don't do this for the executives. No way. I'm like, you guys got to pay. Let's go, because it's not fair. The artists, they need help. I see them struggle all the time. So that's what the programs are about.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I
You're welcome.
know that our listeners are really going to appreciate that. And you've already given so much value on the podcast today.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing examples and stories, and giving some really concrete evidence and steps on how to do these things, and how to start on the branding, and how to start growing their own personal brand and their presence. And I hope that obviously some of our listeners can take advantage of these deals, because I think it'll be super helpful.
Thank you. No, I mean, this has been great. I wish everybody success. It's a hard road, but it's the best thing. I mean, I know as a musician, it's the best thing. So why not make a business out of it if you can? That's what I say. People say, oh, I always say my goal in music is to sing in front of 1 million people in Moscow. It just is. And they're like, "You're crazy." I say, "Good. Then I'm going to make it happen." you know, so you got to think big, but then you need to be smart about it. You need to make it. You actually need to do it somehow. You know, if you really think you're going to do it, you're going to do it. You just, like I said to your last question, if you have the right resources, you can make it happen. You can't make it happen alone. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And having the mentor, as we've talked a lot about today, is so important. And I know Jasmine would be a fantastic mentor for anyone that's listening. So thank you so much.
thank
Thank
you.
you for sharing your story too. I know it's been a whirlwind. Your career is so inspirational and you have so many different areas of interest, but you've done a great job of packaging all of this and making it something that is accessible, obviously, for artists, but is scalable. And it's exciting to see your business now. And I'm excited to see it continue to grow too. Thank you for sharing.